3 years before marrying a British princess, Edoardo Mapelli Mazzi's company quietly collapsed, leaving creditors unpaid and questions unanswered. According to UK Companies House filings reviewed by financial journalists in 2019, the property developer had faced serious business turbulence that royal PR machinery worked swiftly to smooth over. To the world, he was a charming Italian count sweeping Princess Beatrice off her feet. But behind the title, the accent, and the palace wedding, something about his past had been carefully, deliberately buried. The name of Mapelli Mazzi carries weight in certain rooms. Old money, Italian nobility, the kind of lineage that opens doors before man has even spoken a word. Edoardo Mapelli Mazzi was born in 1983. His mother, Nicky Williams Ellis, is British. His father, Count Alessandro Mapelli Mazzi, is Italian aristocracy. The title, Count, is honorary in the British sense. It does not confer legal standing in the United Kingdom, but it confers something arguably more powerful in the circles Edoardo moved through, an immediate assumption of breeding, of legitimacy, of belonging. He was educated at Eton College. That single fact does a great deal of work on its own. Eton is not merely a school. It is a sorting mechanism. It is where England decides very quietly which young men will be trusted with access to power and which will not. Edoardo passed through it. He emerged fluent in the unspoken language of the British elite, the handshakes, the connections, the shared understanding of how things are done. After Eton, he moved into property development. The sector suited him. It rewards confidence, presentation, and the ability to make investors feel they are in safe hands. In 2012, he founded Bonda Property, a boutique London firm specializing in high-end residential development. The early projects were well received. Bonda developed homes in prime postcodes. The brand was sleek. The client list was exclusive. The press, when it noticed him at all in those early years, described him in approving shorthand. Charming, well-connected, quietly successful, a natural fit for the world he was moving through. By the mid-2010s, Edoardo Mapelli Mazzi had built exactly the kind of image that royal circles find reassuring. He was not flashy. He was not political. He did not court controversy. He appeared, to all outward inspection, to be precisely what the firm prefers in the men who enter its orbit: stable, credentialed, and discreet. The property projects kept coming. Bonda's portfolio grew. Its website showcased immaculate interiors and architectural photography that placed the company firmly in the luxury tier of the London market. And yet, for a company of Bonda's stated ambition, certain details in the public record were difficult to square. The company's house filings, which are publicly available to anyone who takes the time to look, told a story that was slightly less polished than the one the brand projected. Subsidiary companies with limited trading histories, filings submitted late, the kind of administrative irregularities that, on their own, mean little, but taken together, suggest a business growing faster than its foundations were built to support. Nobody in the royal press circle looked closely. The name was right. The school was right. The accent was right. People who followed the royal family through the 2010s. Did Edoardo ever feel like someone the palace chose rather than Beatrice did? The answer, it turns out, was hiding in records most people never thought to open. The company was growing fast. Almost too fast for the records to keep up. Edoardo Mapelli Mazzi and Princess Beatrice had moved in overlapping social circles for years. That much was reported. The specific nature of their friendship, when it deepened and why it deepened when it did, was reported far less carefully. What the record shows is this. In early 2018, Edoardo was engaged to someone else. Her name was Dara Huang, an American architect based in London, accomplished, private, and by all accounts the woman Edoardo had committed his future to. The two had met years earlier. By 2016, they were engaged. By 2017, they had a son together, a boy named Christopher Wolfe Mapelli Mazzi, born in April of that year. The engagement ended in 2018. No public statement was made. No reason was given. The split was handled with the kind of quiet efficiency that suggests either great mutual respect or very careful management. And in the months that followed, it became difficult to determine which. What happened next moved quickly. By late 2018, Eduardo and Beatrice were being seen together publicly. By September 2019, they were photographed at Royal Ascot in a manner that left no ambiguity. 1 month later, in October 2019, the engagement was announced. The timeline from the end of one serious relationship, one that had produced a child, to a formal royal engagement was approximately 18 months. Royal watchers noted the romance with warmth. Beatrice, who had spent years navigating a difficult public profile, compounded by her father Prince Andrew's mounting reputational crises, was presented as finally finding happiness. The coverage was gentle. It was almost orchestrated in its gentleness. But there was a detail the warmth of the coverage tended to obscure. Eduardo had not simply ended a relationship. He had left an engagement. He had left the mother of his child. And the woman he had left, Dara Huang, was now co-parenting with a man who was, by late 2019, a formal member of the extended royal family. Dara Huang gave one interview after the split. 1. She spoke 3 sentences to a single reporter about the separation. After that, nothing. No follow-up. No further comment. For a woman who had been engaged to a man now publicly connected to the British royal family. The silence was remarkable. It was the kind of silence that doesn't happen accidentally. It is a kind that is arranged. But that was not the most disturbing part. The press never asked what Dara Huang's silence cost. They never asked what she knew or what she had agreed not to say, or whether the terms of her co-parenting arrangement carry conditions that extended beyond logistics and school pickups. Beatrice, for her part, stepped into a situation of extraordinary complexity. She was already living in the shadow of her father's disgrace. Prince Andrew's association with Jeffrey Epstein had, by 2019, moved from uncomfortable background noise to front-page devastation. She was not a working royal. She held no official duties. She occupied an awkward middle space in the family hierarchy, close enough to the throne to carry the weight of royal expectation, far enough from it to receive none of the institutional protection. She chose, in that context, a man whose previous life came with significant unresolved chapters. The relationship timeline was only the first strange thing. The money told a much more complicated story. Bonda Properties' public profile was immaculate. The website, the projects, the press coverage, all of it pointed in one direction. A successful, tasteful, quietly thriving boutique developer operating at the top end of the London property market. The Companies House filings pointed somewhere else. UK Companies House is a public register. Every limited company operating in England and Wales is required to file accounts there, annual returns, director details, financial statements. The records are open. Anyone can access them. Most people don't. Financial journalists who did access them in 2019 found something worth noting. Bonda Property Limited had, over preceding years, been accompanied by a constellation of related entities. Subsidiary companies and associated vehicles with limited trading histories and, in several cases, dissolution records that raise questions about what exactly they've been used for and why they have been wound down. Late filings appeared in the record. Accounts submitted past their legal deadline. These are not, on their own, evidence of wrongdoing. Small and mid-sized property companies in London routinely carry administrative irregularities. The sector moves fast. Paperwork catches up later, or doesn't, but the pattern mattered, because the pattern existed alongside a public-facing narrative of smooth, uninterrupted success. According to reporting by Property Desk journalists in 2019, questions are being asked, quietly, professionally, about the gap between Banda's projected profile and the documentary record of its corporate history. The questions did not get loud. They did not get published in prominent outlets. They were, in the language of the industry, looked into and set aside. Why they were set aside is the more interesting question. In October 2019, the same week that at least one financial outlet had begun making inquiries about Banda's dissolved subsidiaries, Buckingham Palace released a formal statement confirming that Princess Beatrice and Eduardo Mazzi were engaged to be married. The timing was not lost on every reporter in London. Several noted it privately. None published the observation directly, but that was not the most disturbing part. What followed the engagement announcement was a masterclass in narrative control. Within days, royal correspondents, fed by palace communications, were focused entirely on the romance. The couple's shared history, Beatrice's joy, Eduardo's warmth. The photos were soft and well-lit. The charity appearances were timed precisely. And when Beatrice's pregnancy was confirmed in 2020, the coverage shifted again to nurseries and names and the quiet happiness of a princess who had been through so much. Every time a financial question threatened to surface, a human interest story was already in the room ahead of it. This is not conspiracy. This is communications management at a professional level. Buckingham Palace employs people whose entire job is to ensure that the stories told about the family are the stories the family has chosen to tell. The strategy is documented. The practice is decades old. Royal biographer Valentine Lowe, whose 2022 book Courtiers drew on extensive access to palace sources, described in detail the degree to which the institution manages not just what is said about the royals, but what questions journalists feel comfortable asking. In Eduardo's case, the questions about Banda's corporate record never gained sufficient traction to become a story. The engagement became the story instead. What the filings actually show, and what was done to keep them out of the headlines, is the part that changes how this whole picture looks. Make sure you're subscribed, because this gets considerably more complicated. But the business records were only half of it. The other half was personal, and far more protected. Christopher Wolfe Mapelli Mazzi was born in April 2017. He was 4 years old when his father married Princess Beatrice in a private ceremony at the Royal Chapel of All Saints at Royal Lodge, Windsor, on July 17, 2020. The wedding was small, a concession to pandemic restrictions. The guest list was intimate. The photographs released afterward were carefully chosen. Christopher did not appear in them. That absence, taken on its own, is understandable. He was a young child. His mother was not the bride. Privacy considerations for minor children are legitimate and widely respected. But Christopher's absence from royal coverage did not end with the wedding photographs. It continued, comprehensively, systematically. In the years since the marriage, there has been no official photograph of Christopher in the context of the royal family. No mention in the court circular, the official daily record of royal engagements. No statement from the palace acknowledging his place in the blended family structure that now exists within the extended royal household. For a child connected to British royal family, that degree of invisibility is almost without precedent in the modern era. Royal children, even those on the periphery of the family, are typically acknowledged, named, placed within the public record in some formal way. The institution understands that its legitimacy rests partly on transparency about its membership. Christopher has been granted no such acknowledgement, and that was not the most troubling part. The troubling part is what his absence reveals about the choices being made above him. Anyone who grew up watching the royal family protect Diana's boys from the moment they were born, wrapping them in institutional care and public acknowledgement, even during the most painful years of their parents' marriage. The contrast here will stop you cold. Dara Huang, Christopher's mother, has spoken publicly about her son in only the most limited terms. She has maintained a presence on social media that occasionally references motherhood, but carefully avoids any direct reference to the royal dimension of her son's life. In a 2021 interview focused on her architectural work, she declined to discuss her personal life at all. The interviewer noted the boundary, did not push it. The legal architecture around Christopher's situation is not publicly known. Co-parenting agreements between private individuals, even those with royal connections, are not filed in public registers. What was agreed, what was promised, and what conditions may have been attached to Dara Huang's continued public silence cannot be verified from outside. What can be said is this: the silence has held. It has held through the wedding, through Beatrice's pregnancy and the birth of her daughter, Sienna, in September 2021, through every soft focus feature on the couple's domestic happiness. Through all of it, Christopher's name has not appeared in a single palace-sanctioned communication. There is also a structural question that no constitutional analyst has addressed directly. Beatrice is 9th in line to the throne. Her daughter Sienna is 10th. The question of how Christopher, Eduardo's son from a prior relationship, with no blood connection to the royal family, fits into the legal and constitutional framework of a household that has succession implications has never been publicly addressed. The palace has not been asked, or if it has been asked, the answer has not been published. Beatrice knew all of this before she said yes. She walked into this arrangement with her eyes open, or as open as the institution around her allowed them to be, which raises a question the press never formally put on record. What exactly did the palace know about Eduardo's full history before the engagement was announced? And when they decided it didn't matter, who made that call? Every person who is married into the British royal family in the modern era has been vetted. This is not speculation. It is documented practice. Royal biographer